Welcome to the online classroom for the module INV3703. In this class, I'm going to be taking you through assignment 1 questions on the module. As you know, assignment 1 for this module is online, and each student gets different questions. However, some of the questions might be the same, but occasionally some of the questions have different numbers. Okay. So, but the format is the same. You'll find out that the first section of everyone will be the same, but just different numbers. It's on forward contracts. The second section will be the same on covered interest arbitrage, but just different numbers. Sometimes the numbers will be the same. The third section will be on futures contracts, then forward rate agreements, and then finally bond futures. Okay. And then some theory questions. So I'll just take you through. Everyone's questions are going to be similar to this, but the numbers are the only thing that might be different. You might be lucky and you might see that some of the questions that I cover are actually similar to what your questions are. Okay, so let's try this. We'll start with number 1. Number 1 says an institutional investor expects funding in 160 days, which she will use to buy a particular dividend paying share. The risk-free rate is 9%, discrete compounding. The investor intends to enter into a forward contract on this share. Okay. The best thing to do when you're given a question like this is just to draw a timeline, just to understand what's exactly happening. For example, on question 1, we're going to be given some information. So ideally, you should just draw a timeline to try to help you to understand what's happening. So for question 1, you're asked, assume that this share will pay dividends of 7 Rand in 60 days, 120 days, and 180 days respectively, right? So in other words, okay, let's just do this. So in other words, there we go. So in other words, we're at time 0. We're at time 0. And we've been told that this share that we want to enter into a forward contract will pay dividends on day 120, day 60, day 120, and day 180. Okay, so this is what we've been told. We've been told that this share that we want to enter into is going to pay dividends on day 60, day 120, and day 180. And then we've also been told that we want to enter into a forward contract that expires in 160 days. Okay, so you want to buy a share in 160 days. You're expecting money in 160 days and you want to buy some shares, but you're afraid that the share price for that share will be too expensive for you to buy. So you want to lock in the price today. So you want to exercise your forward contract after 160 days. So this is where we are. We are here today. We want a forward contract that expires 160 days from now. That's when we want to buy the share. And then we're going to receive 2 dividends. We'll receive a dividend of 7 Rand in 60 days, 7 Rand in 120 days. And then do you notice that this last dividend for 180 days, it's occurring after when we want to exercise the forward contract. It's after 160 days. So this one is not important. We are only concerned with these 2. When we are trying to determine the forward price of the share, we are concerned with the dividends that actually occur before the day that our derivatives contract will expire. So we want to discount these two dividends, just this one and this one. This one, we want to discount it over 60 days using a 9% discount rate. And then this one, we want to discount it over 120 days using a 9% discount rate. And then we want to add them. So that's the present value of the dividends to be included in the 160-day forward price. So this one is not included. Okay. So we can go down to the calculation. Yes, the calculation. So we're going to determine the present value of two dividends. One on day 60. So we say 7 divided by 1 plus the risk-free rate to the power 60 over 365 plus 7 over 1 plus the risk-free rate to the power 120 over 365. So I'm sure you see where all this information is coming from. These are simply the dividends. This is the risk-free rate. These are the number of days when the first dividend is received divided by 365 because we have 365 days in a year. These are the days when the second dividend is received divided by 365 because we have 365 dividends in the year, 365 days in a year. So like I said before, our only concern is the present value of the remaining dividend payments. That's why we did not include the final dividend, right? Because our only concern is the dividend payments that will occur during the life of the derivative of the forward contract. So now we need to enter this into our calculator. This is where a lot of students struggle. So I do have a calculator here. It might be different from your calculator, but the place where you enter in all the numbers will be the same. So I've put the calculator up on the screen. So for us, we are mostly going to focus on this side of the calculator, okay? We are going to focus mostly on this side of the calculator. Don't worry about the side. The side is like a bit advanced. We are just going to focus on the side. And you'll notice that the side of the calculator that we're focusing on, these are functions on your calculator. The most important function is this one with the ln and the ex. You can just check to see if you can see these functions on your calculator. They're very important. This one with the xy is also very important. And the square root, of course. And also this one. So I would say the x with the -1, the ln, but mostly the ln and the ex, and the x to the power. Those are the really important ones. Okay, so we want to enter in, we want to determine the present value of those dividend payments. So the first thing we do, we say 7, right? Divided by open bracket 1 plus 0. Okay, let me just do this. 0.09 close bracket to the power, right? So this is the power button. So when you put to the power, different calculators will come out different way. But I recommend that when you're putting powers to do with time, I recommend you put brackets, and then you say 60 divided by 365 close bracket, right? And then don't worry about what's coming out that side. And then you press the right arrow so that you go down. Other calculators will just take you to the right by themselves. Then plus 7 divided by open bracket 1 plus 0.09 close bracket to the power You'll have x to the power x, y, or yx. That's the power button. To the power, open brackets again. Always put time in brackets. 120 divided by 365, close bracket. And then you can press the equal to sign, and you should get your answer. Let me just fix this. Sorry about the way the answer is coming out. Let me just fix it to come out properly. Okay, there I fixed it. So you see we get our answer there, 13.705. So you see it's just about putting in everything carefully on your calculator, and you get the answer, and you've already got 2 or 3 marks or whatever marks they are. So that's the first part of the question. So those are the present value of the dividend payments. Okay. Then next, okay, let's go back. Question number 2 says, assume that the share is currently selling for 82 Rand. So now we're being given some assumptions here. Assume that the share is currently selling for 82 Rand and will pay dividends with a present value of 12 Rand during the 160-day period. The investor takes a long position. Remember, all the formulas in this module and in the textbook, they are from the perspective of the long party. So the investor takes a long position in the share by entering into a forward contract. And then you're asked to find the forward price of the share. So if you remember, if we want to get the forward price of a share that pays dividends, we take the spot price of the share, we subtract the present value of the dividends, and then we multiply by 1 plus r to the power t. So this is a standard formula. Let me see if it's up here. You can get it on different formula sheets. This is just a formula sheet for the sister module to INV3703, but this is the formula we're dealing with. You also find it in the prescribed textbook. Spot price minus present value of dividends multiplied by 1 plus the risk-free rate to the power of time. Okay, so so in our case, it's just a matter of substituting in everything carefully. Okay, the share is currently selling for 82 Rand. The present value of our dividends is 12. The risk-free rate is 9%. And our contract expires in 160 days. Okay, to the power. So it's 1 plus 0.09 to the power 160 over 3. So this is what we want to calculate. You can put the recording on pause. Try to see if you can put this into your calculator and then check the answer you get. And then after that, we'll go to the calculator to see if you get the right answer. Okay, so I hope you put the recording on pause and you were able to do that. Now let's go and see if we can get the answer on the calculator. Okay. Right, so again, when you're using your calculator, you always start by clearing your calculator. That's very important. And then we say open bracket, 82 minus 12, close bracket, multiplied by open bracket, 1 plus our risk-free rate, right? To the power, and then always remember to put your okay, sorry, we have to close brackets, to the power. Always remember to put your time in brackets, and then since it's days, we divide by 365, and then we get the answer 72.69. So I hope you managed to get this answer. So it's really simple. It's just a matter of being comfortable with your calculator, reading the question, taking the information given in the question, putting it in your formula, and then you get the answer. Okay. So let's move on to the next part of the question. The next part of the question says, suppose it is 100 days after the investor has entered into a forward contract and the share price has declined to 72. Assume that the present value of the dividends during the remaining period is 5 Rand and that the initial price of the forward contract is 70 Rand. At this point, the value of the forward contract is dash. Okay, so the idea here, right, is that we are at time 0 initially. We entered into a forward contract that we want to exercise after 160 days. Okay, now 100 days have passed. 100 days have passed, right? We're now here. And the share price at 100 days is now 72 Rand. And we just have one remaining dividend. Yeah, we just have one remaining dividend of 7 Rand that's going to take some to play sometime here. And then if we discount that 7 Rand dividend back to today to find the present value of the 7 Rand dividend, we get it as 5. Okay, so that's the present value of the 7 Rand dividend at time 100 days. So we want to determine the value of this forward contract. And you need to remember that the value of a forward contract at time t is equals to the price of the share at time t minus the present value of the remaining dividends minus the forward price we will have calculated initially over 1 plus r. And then t, this is the original time of the forward contract, which is 160 days, minus small t, which is the number of days that have elapsed, which is 100 days, the time. Okay, so this is the formula. Now, this formula can be a bit tricky. Okay. ST is just the price of the share today, which is 72 Rand. Present value of the remaining dividends is just 5, as we're told the present value of the remaining dividends is 5. Okay. The initial price of the forward contract, we've been told the initial price of the forward contract is 70. Usually you will have calculated this, but in this case it was given, right? The risk-free rate is 9%. Now here you have to be careful. Okay, I'll draw the timeline again. 160 days corresponds to T, big T. 100 days after the initial contract, 100 days after the investors entered into the contract. So 100 corresponds to small t. So we say big T minus small t, and we get 60. So it means this power is going to be 60 over 365. Remember, these are days, so we should always remember to change our days into years. So this is what we need to do to get the value. Okay, again, you can use your calculator. The idea is just writing out everything correctly, and then after writing everything out correctly, you can then use your calculator to guide you with the calculations, depending on the calculator you have. So actually, let's put the recording on pause, right? Just go back to what I wrote. Try to see if you can enter it into your calculator and try to see if you can get the answer. Just rewind, go back to that item I just wrote down, that equation, enter the values into your calculator, and then bring the class here forward, and then we'll see what answer we get. Okay, I hope you managed to do that. Let's actually get to doing the question. We said we always make sure you clear first. And then we say 72 minus 5 minus open bracket 7 divided by open bracket 1 plus 0.09 close bracket to the power open bracket. Brackets are really important. Divided. You don't get marks for calculations in this module. So you just have to be good with your calculator. There are no marks for calculations. Remember, it's an online module. So the only thing you get marks for is the final answer. To the power 60 over 365, we press this right button to go down. In some calculators, you don't have to press it, but I think in a Casio, you need to press it. In Sharp, you don't need to. In some Sharp calculators, you don't need to press it. And then we close that big bracket. Remember, this whole part was in brackets. Sorry. Remember, that whole part was in brackets. Like, yeah. Remember, this whole part was in brackets if you go to the diagram. Okay. Let's see if this is correct. Oh, sorry, this is actually, sorry. Let me actually go back. It's actually supposed to be 70, not 7. Sorry, it's actually 70. Remember the forward price. It's not 7, it's 70. Minus open bracket 70 divided, because the forward price, yeah. So we get minus 2.02. So I hope you managed to get that. So that's the answer. So you see, I'm not even calculating anything. I'm not writing anything down. It's just about practicing with your calculator. Practice, practice, practice. Enter in the numbers. You get the answer. Okay. Let's go back to the last part of the question. Last part of question 1. Okay, there we go. The last part of question 1 says, assuming the present value of the remaining dividends during the 160-day period is 12. Okay, assuming the present value of the dividends paid. Okay, assuming all the present value of the dividends paid during this 160-day period is 12, and that the initial price of the forward contract is 70, and at expiration, the price of the underlying share is 73. Then we're asked to determine the value of the forward contract at expiration. The value of a forward contract at expiration is very simple. This is at the end of the contract, right, at expiration. If you're asked to determine the value of a forward contract at expiration, right, you simply take the spot price minus the forward price. That's all. You simply take the price the share is selling at expiration minus the initial forward price that you will have calculated at the beginning. In this case, we're just told to assume it's 70. So this is really simple. These are simple marks. Okay. To determine the value of a forward contract at expiration, simply take the price of the share at expiration minus the forward price that you will have calculated initially. The dividends don't matter when you've reached expiration, because there are no dividends left. You're now at the end of the contract. So in this case, the answer is 3 Rand. It's important to have a formula sheet that you're familiar with. I think this formula sheet even has, okay, I thought it would have the formula for the value at expiration. It doesn't have it. But the value of a forward contract at expiration is very simple. And remember, all these formulas are from the perspective of the long party. So we're not worried about negative signs or positive signs because you want to buy this share. So you're the long party. So everything to do with the value that we were calculating, since you're the long party, all those answers pertain to you. But if you were the short party, every time we were calculating value, we would have to change the sign. Okay, so let's say you were the short party, and then we calculate minus 2.02. So this is the value for question 3 for the long party. But if you're the short party, the value of the contract to you would actually be 2.02. We remove the negative. The value of a derivative contract to the short party is the opposite sign of the value of the derivative contract to the long party. Okay, that's important. So if you're the long party and we calculate the value to be 4, then if you're the short party, the value of the contract to you will be minus 4. That's why you see in red, you keep being told to enter the amount either a negative or a positive, because the lecturer wants to see if you know the difference between the long party and the short party. So if you're calculating the value of a contract for a short party, always remember to change the sign on your answer. When you've calculated your answer, your value, and you are told that the party wants to sell the share, or the short party, always remember to change the sign. Okay. So that's number 1. Next, let's look at number 2, covered interest arbitrage. Again, this is a relatively short question, but it's a question that